Okay, for lecture number 3, I/O buffer modeling, what we're going to talk about is the 3 major types of I/O models for signal integrity modeling and simulation. So it's going to be SPICE models, ibis models, and macro models. And by the end of the lecture series, what I'll give to you is a selection criteria that you can use. So this way you can understand when to use which model for which situation. So it'll be a little bit of a matrix style thing. You can start, at the top and go all the way down to the bottom. And this way you'll have a nice little chart that you can reference when you're trying to decide, should I use an ibis model or a SPICE model or a macro model. And we'll sort of compare and contrast the difference between the I/O models. And this will be sort of the fundamental beginning of your understanding of how I/O models are going to be used in simulation for signal integrity.
Welcome to lecture number 3 in the Certified Signal Integrity Engineer coursework. Lecture number 3 is Input-Output I/O Buffer Modeling Overview. I'm Tim Coyle, President of Signal Consulting Group, and I'm going to be your presenter and host for this lecture. So I'm going to give you a couple of references for this lecture about I/O buffer modeling overview. And I'm really going to give you just one for this one actually, and this is going to be the Handbook of Digital Techniques for High-Speed Design. And this is by Tom Granberg from Prentice Hall in 2004. And this is actually a really good book, and it's a book that I recommend, and that it covers a lot of high-speed digital design technologies, but it's really got a lot of information about the different I/O technologies that are in high-speed designs. And Tom does a really good job of pulling in information on a whole bunch of different topics and I/O things, like there's CML for current mode logic, there's LVDS for low voltage differential signaling. He goes over a wide variety of DDR interfaces. DDR, even it does GDDR, I believe. And then, your standard LV, TTL, and things like that. So it's actually a pretty good book, and it's probably one you want to add to your library. So let's move on to the lecture topics of what we're going to talk about in today's lecture. So we're going to identify 3 different types of models for I/O buffers. And when I talk about I/O buffers, I'm really talking about the device silicon. So this is really going to be your driver or receiver, anything in your interface channel that's an active device. So then we're going to compare and contrast the different model types. And the whole idea is really to gain an understanding of when to use which model type for signal integrity analysis. And so let me draw you a quick example here, right? So if this is your driver, and then you've got a transmission line, and it comes over here to your receiver, right? So like I said, this is your TX, and this is your RX, and let's say this is 50 ohms, right? When you run simulation analysis in any EDA or SPICE tool, what are you going to use for your transmitter and receiver? What type of simulation model, right? And so a lot of people are familiar with SPICE. And of course, ibis is very popular for signal integrity. But there's also some other choices, and everything else I lump in the category of which I call a macro model. And we're going to go over that in the rest of this lecture about these 3 major types. So the I/O model building blocks. As I said, there's really 3 types of models available. And the first one is SPICE. And then there's ibis, and then there's macro model. And this is actually the order of normally how you'll find models go is there's a SPICE model, and then there's an ibis model, and then there might be a macro model. So throughout this course, you're going to be using the SharkSim evaluation software, and this is the SharkSim Developer Lite version that you have access to throughout this course. And so what I want to do is, this is just sort of a setup and walkthrough video. It won't be very long, and so I'll talk about the different features and how to set it up and get going and using this. And then as you walk through the lectures and see different things, you can try things on your own and use ibis models from different vendors or your own ibis models to follow up on some of the examples. Okay, so the first thing is you should have the zip file that came part of your course package you could download through the online course. And then so you download it and zip it, and it should be, something like Win Developer Lite release. It should be the 2.3.0 release. And so I'm just showing it right here. And this is on Windows. And then so unzip it and open up this folder. And in this folder, there's some things here that we'll go through. But the first thing is, right, Shark Sim. So I already have the application open, but the very first thing is when you start Shark Sim the first time is you won't see this. You'll just see this pop-up box, and this is a license window, right? And what it's doing is actually asking you for the license key. So what you need to do is you need to copy down this application ID just as it's written, and then email it to me, and then I will create the license key for you. And again, it's good for 2 weeks, and then you'll enter that in and you'll hit OK. Okay, so make sure you do this at the very beginning of the course, and don't wait till the end, or else you won't get access to the software. And so it's based on your Mac ID, but I don't make you get the Mac ID. I just pull it and encrypt the number here. So you can just grab this number and send it to me, and I'll give you your 2-week code. And then, so once you have the code and hit OK, then the tool should open up blank, and then you should be good to go. And then if you have any problems, so like if you can't get to the screen, the application ID, or if you put an application ID and it doesn't work, just email or call me, use the contact information, and I'll help you through it and get you set up. So once you have the license key in properly, the first thing you need to do is go to View Preferences. And then when you do that, you might get a pop-up message that says keywords aren't set, but don't worry about it. We'll go. That's what we're going to go through right now. So under author, you can just put your name, and the author is used throughout the tool. And mostly it'll be in the notes section. So if you add any notes to the ibis file and any reports you create, it'll automatically pull from that. So